Hey guys, I recently bought a Tesla Model 3 and in this video I'm going to explain why I think it was a solid financial decision. The base price of the standard edition is £40,990, but I went for the long range model which is £48,490. And then I added the optional red paint for £2,000 and also a tow hitch for £1,000, bringing the total cost of the car up to £50,000. But the car actually costs less than this. Let me explain to you why. But there is a catch. You will need a business. Businesses can do something in general that people can't do, and that's writing off expenses. When a person buys something, it's nearly always out of money that you've already paid tax on. You do your job, tax gets taken out of your salary automatically by your employer, and then only then do you get paid. A business is different. It pays tax on its profits, not on its earnings. Okay, so if your business has £100,000 of profit, you're liable to pay 19% corporation tax on it. That's £19,000, which goes straight to the government to spend on crazy projects. For now, assume that your company spent £50,000 on a car. Well, that would mean you only had 50% profit because £50,000 of the car is an expense. So you'd pay 19% on your remaining £50,000, which would be just £9,500. So a £50,000 car costs just £40,500. We need to talk about what businesses can legally expense. You mean you couldn't just pay your rent or buy all your shopping and meals out, for example. So there's a test called wholly and necessarily incurred. So if your business wholly and necessarily needs something, you can expense it. So for example, as a software developer, you can expense, realistically, the top-of-the-line MacBook. For YouTubers, you could expense a camera, you could expense lighting gear, sound equipment, and so on. If you were VAT registered, you could get the 20% VAT off, and it would essentially make your equipment more or less half price. But what about a car? And what about a car with personal use? Let's say your business is a taxi firm, in which case you would claim the car, you would claim the 20% VAT on the vehicle, which would be substantial, and you'd claim more or less everything. But you wouldn't be allowed to use it for personal use. What about a car that's purchased and you have personal use? Let's say it's entirely personal use. Well, in these cases, the government will tax you on it, as though the car was a payment to yourself through something called benefit in kind. Now here's the crucial part. The benefit in kind tax on a fully electric vehicle is currently 0%. Come and have a look at this. So, the new car is £50,000. We take off £5,000 VAT. So that brings us down to £45,000. We can remove £7,600 of the corporation tax. And that gives us a grand total of £37,400. And that's how much this car costs. Let's talk about benefit in kind. At 1% BIC, it's £16 a month to pay. And at 2%, it's £32, and so on. So why would the government do this? Well, historically, company cars have been big, expensive BMWs and Mercedes and Audis, big German stinking diesels and petrols, which are terrible for the environment. And as we know, fully electric vehicles have zero emissions. You can leave them running outside of school, for example. So by incentivizing businesses to buy electric cars, over time, more and more of them become available, and they become cheaper, especially in the second-hand market, which is much better for the environment in the long term. So you also save on the VAT for business use. So if your vehicle is exclusively for business use, then you can save 20% on the cost of the car. But if you're like me and your vehicle is also for personal use, then you'll save about 10%. That's all you can do, half the VAT. But what if you're leasing? Well, if you're leasing, you can save 20% again. I'm not sure why, but there you go. Electric vehicles don't particularly need servicing, but any servicing they do need can be paid for by the business, and VAT can be reclaimed at 20%. New tyres, for example, they're not cheap, they can be reclaimed too. So that's a really handy thing to know. But if you're doing this, you cannot reclaim the fuel, so you have to pay the fuel. But fuel's not expensive at all, it's 4 pence per mile on average. If you look at my previous video, you can see some details there. So if this was helpful to you, please leave a comment and a like. That really helps the YouTube algorithm recommend this video to other people. And I look forward to seeing you again. Thanks very much. Bye for now.